Welcome to The Disappearing Mind, a unique podcast helping you find clarity and support along your dementia journey. Now, join National Dementia Trainer and Coach Dawn Platt for an all-new episode.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This is your host, Dawn Platt. Thank you today for joining me on The Disappearing Mind, where we share stories and have caregiving conversations discussing strategies and support for those caring for loved ones with dementia and memory loss. We're diving into a topic today that touches everyone involved in dementia care, and that is understanding memory loss and its impact, tips for caregivers and families. I get a lot of questions in and around this particular topic. I think that people who are caring for someone or know someone have lots of questions. It's one thing to say that they have dementia. It's another to say they're confused or have confusion. But to really understand what it means, maybe get an insight onto what it feels like, and certainly and always being understanding is a way to cope when you don't always know what's going on with your loved one or this particular person. So let's talk a little bit about understanding memory loss and its impact, both on the external world environment and on the individual. I think it's really important that you understand what's going on with them. A lot of things they're doing may not seem lucid to you or normal to you, but when you understand perhaps where they're coming from or how they're feeling, you might have a lot more empathy in your response to these individuals whom you support. So memory loss is one of the most important recognizable signs of dementia, but its effects go far beyond forgetting names or appointments. It changes relationships. I think you can identify with that, whether you're a spouse or an adult child. It changes daily routines and the way a person experiences the world. But here's the good news. Understanding memory loss helps caregivers and families provide better care, maintain stronger connections, and adapt with empathy. In today's episode, we'll explore what memory loss really means, the different types of memory affected by dementia, how memory loss impacts daily life and relationships, and some practical tips for supporting someone experiencing memory loss. Plus, at the end of this podcast, I'm going to do a question and answer segment where I'll answer your questions about navigating this particular challenge. Again, if you're interested in submitting questions, please go to thedisappearingmind.com and submit your questions that I will very much try to address on air. I'll try and address in a segment, but I think that people relate to these questions and find them very useful. Let's take a deep breath, grab a cup of tea, a bottle of water, pen and a pencil, piece of paper, and let's go ahead and get started in this podcast. So, what does memory loss really mean? When you hear the word memory loss, we often think of things like forgetting names or misplacing keys. But memory loss, especially in dementia, is much more complex. There's a lot more going on. And there are different types of dementia, memory loss with dementia, that can affect each in different ways. I want to go through a few of them today so that you understand the differences. They're not lumped together, even though some of them do overlap. I want you to understand some of the differences. And after we go through this today, I'm hopeful that you're going to be able to identify, have an aha moment about the different types of memory loss that perhaps you are dealing with in your dementia journey with your loved one. Let's talk a little bit about short-term memory. And short-term memory, really in a nutshell, this is the ability to remember recent events, very recent events, things that might have happened yesterday, today, or 5 minutes ago. what they had for breakfast or a conversation from earlier in the day. That's short-term memory. And that is generally something we see very quickly up front. It's in the very early stages. It's one of those things that becomes most noticeable with early onset or early stages of dementia. When short-term memory is affected, a person may ask the same question repeatedly or forget recent visitors. So I'm going to do a whole segment, a whole podcast on repetitive questions, which I know that it's probably a most popular topic that people struggle with or people want to understand. Stay tuned for that. We want to talk about recent visitors. You may have had visitors yesterday or even 3 days ago, and the person is really unable to recall that visit. And that's short-term memory. Those are all short-term things that are very difficult that a person will need a lot of support with. And then let's talk a little bit about long-term memory. These memories last a little longer. It makes people very curious. Oh, I can't remember what happened this morning, but I can remember what happened to me in high school. And there's a reason for that. And of course, we'll get into that a little bit later. I think I've covered that on several episodes of how memory disappears. But these long-term memories are memories from years ago. So this could be childhood experiences, family traditions, or major life events that have happened. Interestingly enough, long-term memories often remain intact longer, which is why people with dementia may recall events from decades ago, but not what has happened this morning. This is often a puzzle for individuals who are friends or family with a person with dementia. They just can't figure that out, but it is the way memory works. It's the way memory lapses work, is from short-term back to long-term. Then there's what's called the procedural memory. So this relates to how we do things, like riding a bike or brushing our teeth or using the remote or writing a check, abstract kind of task. Those things really become pretty noticeable in the early stages. Procedural memory tends to stay intact a little longer, which is why familiar routines can be comforting. You may find that mom or dad can write a check, but maybe they can't use the remote, or they can't figure out how the lock works on the door, or they can't run the can opener, but there are other things that they can do. That is procedural memory. Let's talk a little bit about episodic memory. Episodic memory is the memory of specific events, like a wedding or a birthday party. An episodic memory loss can make it difficult to connect with loved ones over shared experiences. You'll find typically that episodic memory is a lot better. It's a lot more prevalent that they will maintain big events, huge events. They may travel or vacation time, a special wedding or birthday party. You may find that they will hold on to those memories or recall those memories at different times throughout the stages of their dementia journey. But that's episodic memory. And then there's somatic memory. And somatic memory is knowledge of facts, concepts, and language. Decline in somatic memory can affect the ability to find the right words or follow conversations. This word finding, I call it word finding difficulty, is very prevalent. And it's kind of hard to understand because they'll use different words for the word that they mean, or they will use yes for no and no for yes. That is something that you may say, well, you said this. Well, they didn't mean that. Word finding difficulties, word processing difficulties, understanding what is said difficulties. These are all symptoms of different types of memory processes. So understanding which type of memory is affected can help us tailor how we support and communicate with individuals who have dementia. Very important. Your communication style and your ability to understand and process what they're saying or what they're wanting will change throughout the dementia journey. Let's just talk about a little bit about how memory loss impacts daily life and relationships, because this is another topic that I'm often asked about, or it's a topic that people struggle with understanding. Dementia doesn't mean to be personal. It is personal. We take it personal, but there's a lot of it that is just due to that memory or cognitive loss. It's not thought out. It's not intentional. Understanding the process will be helpful to you. Memory loss isn't just about forgetting. It changes how a person navigates daily life and how they relate to others. When you think about those two topics, navigates daily life, how they do that is not going to be the same with the way they did it pre-dementia. And relating to others will need more support, more facilitation from the other party. Many people who develop dementia are not relational like they used to be. They're not emotional like they used to be. They're not empathetic like they used to be. And it's not a personal choice. It is just part of the disease process. Impact on daily routines. Individuals could forget how to prepare a meal. They definitely can forget how to manage their medications, or even the steps of getting dressed can affect their independence. Routine tasks may not come easy for individuals as they progress, and it may take longer or even cause frustration. I think a lot of times when there's refusal to do things, it's a sense of loss on their part, or a sense of maybe frustration because they just don't understand the process anymore. And so it's really important that we as caregivers kind of understand what's happening to them. There is an impact on communication. They have word finding difficulties. They may use one word for another. They have difficulty following a conversation or remembering names that can lead to withdrawal from social interactions. How embarrassing it could be if you no longer could remember the name of a group of people that you knew in your family or even socially. And people will withdraw from that simply because they cannot remember the name or follow along in the conversation. Caregivers, you could feel hurt when a loved one forgets you or forgets your name. But it's important to remember the connection is still there, even if the memory isn't. That's really important. And you may have to take 100% of the effort to maintain that connection, but it's still there. Some of us didn't go through that loss where our parent forgot us. Others do. And it really depends on the degree of memory loss. It depends on the type of dementia and the deterioration level that someone goes through as they walk the dementia journey. Let's talk about some impact on emotions, because this one, again, is something people don't understand. They react or interact in a way that they unconsciously believe that people have full control of their emotions. With dementia, and they do not. They just do not. That may ebb and flow, but they don't. Memory loss can cause confusion and cause anxiety or fear when the environment feels unfamiliar. We've talked about this before on the podcast, and being comfortable in their surroundings impacts everything in their actions, especially when it comes to confusion or in the emotional realm. Loved ones may experience embarrassment or frustration when they can't remember things, and it's important to provide them with support and reassurance in those times. Here's a tip. If your loved one forgets something significant, like the loss of a spouse, reintroducing that memory can cause them to relive grief. In these cases, it's often kinder to redirect the conversation rather than correct them. So let me just clarify this a little bit. They may ask for their spouse, or they may ask for a family member that's no longer with us. And that's a significant loss of memory for them, reminding them that this person has died or they died 5 years ago or they're no longer with us, can be very devastating to the person who has dementia, and they will relive that pain over and over again. So it's really wise to divert that conversation, provide some reassurance, and to really just be there and try and support them. So let's talk about some practical tips for supporting someone with memory loss. We want to get into these practical tips because I think it's important. You should probably write them down. A lot of them are not going to come naturally to you, especially if this is a parent or a spouse or a brother or sister. You're going to tend to act and react the way that you always have. So how can you support someone experiencing memory loss in a way that's helpful, compassionate, but also empowering? Well, number one, you need to keep it simple. Keep it simple. Use clear, short sentences and yes and no questions. Don't complicate it. Instead of asking, what would you like to wear today? Try, would you like to wear the blue shirt or the red one? And you might even pull them out and show it to them. Keep things very simple. Create a calm, consistent environment. Routines help because they tap into procedural memory, meaning repetitive memory. Routines are important. People can build expectations on what happens generally next, what happens every day. Routines are critically important. Keep familiar objects and photos visible. They provide comfort and connection. Use things that are visual cues and reminders to the individual. You may want to label drawers or cabinets. You may want to put up daily schedules or use clocks with large numbers. Visual cues can ease confusion and reduce repeated questions. The person reads it, they're likely to be able to process some of it, and it just provides that extra security they may need. Focus on feelings, not facts. If they're confused about a time or place, respond to the emotion, not just the error. For example, if they asked for a loved one that has passed, respond with, tell me about them. What do you miss most? Instead of, Dad, they passed away 3 years ago. When you allow them to reminisce or you bring up those feelings of reminiscence, this will validate their feelings without causing distress. This simple little techniques will make all the difference really in your conversational experience with someone who has dementia. Stay patient and flexible. Memory loss can make daily life unpredictable. Go with the flow when possible. If frustration builds up, take a break yourself. It's okay. You're human too. Step back, step out. Not all days are going to be peachy. Not all days are going to run perfectly. I want to say, caregivers, you're doing an incredible job. Small, thoughtful adjustments really make a big difference. Small wins. Celebrate the small wins every day because these are going to make a difference in your life. I want to move into caregiver question and answer. And today I want to talk about some of the questions that you have submitted, some that I've got through Dementia Coaching with Families, where I answer some of the thoughtful questions that you've sent in about understanding and coping with memory loss. So let's jump in to questions in around understanding and coping with memory loss. Question number one, my mom keeps asking the same question over and over. How can I respond without losing my patience? Okay, everybody at some point probably asked this question. I know that I did, and I actually knew the answer to it. Great question. Repetitive questions are so common. And yes, they can be frustrating. The key here is patience and consistency. Try and remain calm. Repeated responses, use the same words each time. It can be soothing. Do not change your voice. The third or fourth or fifth time that you've answered today, keep the same inflection in your voice. Visual reminders, write the answer on a whiteboard. For instance, doctor's appointment at 2 p.m. today. Redirect their attention, suggest an activity that they may enjoy to break the cycle of questioning. Remember, the repetition isn't intentional. It's a need for reassurance. And often they're just looking for something else, not necessarily the answer to a question. But if there's a puzzling question on their mind, try and redirect them and provide reassurance. Here's another question. What should I do when my dad doesn't recognize me? Well, this could be a disheartening experience for families to go through, but let's just talk about how incredibly hard that this could be. And it's something that many caregivers face. And here's what you can do if this is happening to you or your family. Don't take it personally. Recognition relies on short-term memory, which is often the first to go. Introduce yourself warmly. Hi, Dad, it's me. It's great to see you. I will tell you every time, which is a lot, that I interact with someone with dementia, I always reach my hand forward and I say, it's great to see you. It's something that seems to be universal and everybody seems to respond to it. It kind of sets the scenario that they know that I know them or that I recognize them, and it seems to put them at ease. And almost 100% of the time, they will respond to me in a very warm manner, and they will repeat what I have said. It's great to see you too. Focus on connection. If this person doesn't recognize you, try talking about familiar topics or looking at photo albums together. Try and connect, make the connection, laugh, joke, whatever it can be that you can do, try and connect with them. Live in the moment. Even without recognition, your presence matters. The feelings of love and safety remain with the individual. Being present is very, very important. Even if they don't know your name, I can tell you that throughout my career, many of the residents and patients and individuals that I cared for or supported never remembered my name, but they remembered my face, my smile, and how I made them feel. That's really, really important. Next question. How can I help my husband remember important things like taking medication? Another great question. And here are some practical strategies. Set alarms on a phone or a clock as reminders. Use pill organizers with labeled compartments for each day. There's some new pill organizers with reminders. You can find them online that also have reminder sets to them. Create a visible checklist for daily routines, something that they can see and read if possible. Link medication to daily activities. For example, after breakfast, we take our pills together. After lunch, we take 2 more pills or whatever it is. And then dinner and so on. Consistency is key. The fewer surprises, the better. And remember to set routines and to keep them. Here's another question. Why does my loved one remember things from years ago but forget what just happened? I talked about this earlier in the podcast, but this happens because long-term memories are often stored in parts of the brain that remain intact longer. Short-term memory, on the other hand, relies on the more vulnerable areas affected earlier by dementia. It is why your loved one might vividly recall your childhood, but not remember lunch. Takeaway, lean into those long-term memories. Talk about the past. Look at old photos and reminisce together. It's a beautiful way to stay connected. And oftentimes, they will enjoy the same story multiple times a day for multiple days until it's no longer credible to them. You don't have to have 10 topics to talk about. You can talk about 1 or 2. As long as it brings smiles to their face and they enjoy it, go ahead and repeat it. That's fine. Let's just look at some final reflections. And I want to give you some encouragement today as we begin to close the episode. Here's what I want you to remember. Memory loss changes how your loved one experiences life, but it doesn't erase who they are. Let that sink in a minute. Memory loss changes how your loved one experiences life, but it doesn't erase who they are. The connection you share is still there, even if the details fade. Be patient, be understanding, show compassion. These are our superpowers. Make small adjustments in how you communicate and connect, and this can make a huge difference. And don't forget, you matter too. Caregiving is tough. Give yourself credit for every smile, every calm moment, every victory, and every step you take on this journey. I want to talk about just some resources available to you. There are resources to support you. Please visit thedisappearingmind.com. Visit our resource page to provide useful resources as well as guides and information to support you. A list of our podcasts to listen to and share. But here are some other resources I want to share with you. The Alzheimer's Association has a 24/7 helpline. It is 1-800-272-3900. This is a 24/7 helpline. 1-800-272-3900. Visit the Alzheimer's Foundation of America at www.alzfdn.org for more resources and information. Local support groups will connect you with others in your area who understand and can change everything. Books like The 36-Hour Day, a go-to guide for families for people living with memory loss, is a wonderful reference. Well, that wraps up our episode today in our Caregiving Conversation series. I hope these insights on understanding memory loss and its impact give you practical tips and a little more peace as you care for those that you love who have dementia. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps us reach many more caregivers who could use some support and encouragement. Don't forget to visit us on other social media platforms such as Facebook, YouTube, all media outlets, and share our support with those who are in need. If you have questions for our next Q&A session or stories that you'd like to share, email us at thedisappearingmind.com. We'd love to hear from you. You're doing important work. You're not alone, and you are enough to get through this. Until next time, this is Dawn Platt. Make it a memorable day.
Thank you for joining us for the Disappearing Mind podcast. We hope it's helped you find clarity and support along your journey. Be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode, visit our website to suggest future topics, and share the podcast with friends and family.